I had no idea what I was getting into when my friend casually handed me an invitation to one of Diddy's infamous parties. It came through a mutual connection, someone who claimed to have inside access but wouldn't elaborate. At first, it seemed almost too good to be true. These parties were said to be the ultimate in exclusivity. If you were lucky enough to get in, you'd witness things no one else could. Curious, I accepted, thinking it would be just another wild night out. But even before we arrived, I sensed something was wrong. The location alone should have set off alarms. It wasn't in a typical venue, a club, or some wealthy person's mansion. No, it was tucked away in a secluded area, surrounded by high gates and dense trees, almost as if designed to keep whatever was going on inside hidden from the outside world. The mansion was like a fortress, secluded, private, and completely cut off from the rest of the world. As we pulled up to the entrance, the first red flag hit me. Security. They weren't just checking IDs. This was the next level. The moment we stepped out of the car, we were met by a team of serious-looking guards, earpieces in place, moving with military precision. They didn't just look at us. They confiscated all our phones, every single one, and sealed them in high-tech, bubble-like cases that wouldn't open until we left. There was no room for negotiation. The guards made it clear. No phones, no pictures, no exceptions. Then came the pat-downs, thorough to the point of invasion. They checked every pocket, every bag, even inside our shoes. It was excessive, but the message was clear. What happens here stays here. I overheard one guard mutter something like, "If this gets online, there'll be trouble." And the seriousness in his tone made it clear he wasn't just making a threat. He was promising serious consequences. I should have turned back then, but I ignored my instincts and continued to follow my friends deeper into the estate. Once inside the gates, the atmosphere was strangely subdued. Too quiet, too controlled. I had expected loud music and a frenzy of energy, but everything felt eerily quiet. Then one of Diddy's sons, I won't say which one, started walking around, scanning the crowd. He wasn't there to party, he was there to recruit. You could tell by the way he moved, like he was picking and choosing who would be allowed into the mansion and who would be left behind. When he pointed to me, I didn't know whether to feel honored or alarmed. He waved me over, leaving my friends behind. I hesitated, but told them to wait and walked toward him, my stomach churning. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being chosen for something I wasn't ready for. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere changed immediately. It hit me like a punch in the gut. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the atmosphere was completely different from outside. Everything was more intense, more mysterious. The rooms were dimly lit, casting long shadows, and the music was strange, a low-frequency hum that you could feel echoing through your chest. As I walked through the rooms, what I saw defied explanation. In one corner, people were engaged in disturbing, twisted acts that seemed more ritualistic than anything else. They moved in a slow, deliberate manner, as if following some unspoken order. In another room, an orgy was taking place, out in the open, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. People were completely consumed, indifferent to the presence of others. But by far the most disturbing thing was a group of perhaps 12 people, standing motionless in a corner. They were dressed like life-size dolls, faces painted stark white, with red lips and dark, haunting eyes. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They just stood there, staring off into the distance. It was the creepiest thing I'd ever seen, as if they were part of some twisted spectacle designed to unsettle anyone who dared look too closely. Time seemed to lose all meaning there. My watch read 7 a.m. when I checked it. But inside the mansion, it felt like time had stopped. At first I thought it might be some kind of avant-garde performance or art piece. But no, it was clear this wasn't a show. There were no cameras, no directors, just people acting out their darkest desires, unrestrained by any social rules. Drugs were everywhere, not just alcohol and party drugs, but hard drugs, the kind that can completely consume a person. People went from coherent to unconscious in a matter of minutes, but no one blinked. Everyone knew the drill. What struck me most was that everyone, guests, security, and staff alike, was dressed in white, which gave the whole scene an eerie cult-like vibe. It felt surreal, like I had walked into some nightmarish secret ceremony. I don't know how long I was in there, but eventually the weight of it all became unbearable. I had to leave. I slipped out of the mansion and found my friends still waiting by the pool, completely unaware of what I had witnessed. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to relive it. And even now, I can't shake the feeling that I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. I've tried searching for more information, but every trace of those parties has been erased from the internet. Occasionally, I hear whispers from people who were there and saw similar things, but they refuse to speak publicly about it. It's like there's an unspoken rule. What happens at Diddy's parties stays at Diddy's parties, and if you're smart, you keep quiet about it. So if you ever get an invitation, take my advice. Don't go. There's nothing glamorous about it. Just secrets, silence, and a world far darker than you can imagine. I never really thought much about the conspiracy theories surrounding Beyoncé and Jay-Z until I found myself drawn into their world. The invitation came from the same group behind Diddy's infamous parties. Strict privacy, high security, no phones allowed. Having been to Diddy's events, I thought I knew the drill: weird vibes, secrecy, and things that shouldn't be leaked online. But this time the energy felt different, more ominous, like I was stepping into something much darker than I expected. We arrived at a massive estate deep in the Hamptons, far off the beaten path. Like Diddy's parties, the first thing we had to do was hand over our phones, which were locked in bubble cases until we left. No cameras, no recording. Security made sure of that with thorough pat-downs. I had been through this before, but this time it felt less about privacy and more about control, making sure no one walked out with anything they could use against them. Inside, the atmosphere was different from Diddy's chaotic parties. It was more subdued, but there was a palpable tension, a sense that something important was about to happen. The guests were all high profile, the kind who don't show up casually. Almost immediately, there were whispers of a ritual, but I had no idea what they meant. I assumed it was just industry talk, code for something exclusive happening later. Around midnight, the mood changed dramatically. The lights dimmed and the music changed to something slower, darker, almost hypnotic. That's when they showed up. When Beyoncé and Jay-Z walked into the room hand in hand, it felt like time stood still. They moved through the room, like royalty surveying their kingdom. Had been around celebrities before, but this was different. It wasn't just their fame. They seemed to have an invisible power that affected everyone around them. People instinctively stepped back and gave them space, almost as if they were afraid to get too close. I stayed with my group, trying not to look too eager, but it was impossible not to watch them. They didn't smile. They didn't acknowledge anyone around them. They just moved purposefully toward the back of the mansion, a place where only a select few were allowed to follow. As time passed, the whispers grew louder. Conversations about the inner circle became more open. I had heard about it before at Diddy's parties, but had never taken it seriously. Tonight, however, it was clear that this was no mere rumor. I overheard a woman nearby saying that the activities behind those closed doors were ancient, far beyond the music industry, and that Beyoncé and Jay-Z were at the center of it. She claimed that they wielded power not only in the industry, but in ways that no one could really understand. It sounded crazy, but the certainty in her voice sent chills down my spine. After about an hour, things started to get weird. People started disappearing, escorted by security to the back rooms. The rest of us continued to drink and socialize. But the atmosphere changed. The tension was thick, and people looked around nervously, as if they knew something big was about to happen. Talk turned darker rumors of sacrifice, occult rituals, and how Beyoncé and Jay-Z's rise to power was tied to these practices. Someone brought up Diddy's parties again, suggesting that they were connected to what was happening here. Apparently, the same group ran both events, and what happened at Diddy's parties was connected to these secret gatherings. They spoke of secret meetings and a vast network of powerful people, something like the Illuminati, but far older and more sinister. These weren't just industry parties. These were gatherings of those who wielded real, hidden power. I didn't want to believe it, but when I started putting the pieces together, the no-phone rule, the tight security, the strange rituals, it all pointed to the same conclusion. Diddy's parties were the gateway, a test of loyalty. And as you got deeper into the circle, like tonight with Beyoncé and Jay-Z, things got darker and more secretive. As the night wore on, Beyoncé and Jay-Z returned from the back, accompanied by a select few who had gone with them. The energy in the room immediately shifted. Those who had been in the back room seemed different, quieter, more subdued, as if they had witnessed something they shouldn't have. Some of them looked visibly shaken, as if they were holding a secret that could destroy them if it were ever revealed. Then something even stranger happened. The music stopped and Beyoncé, standing in the middle of the room, began to sing. It wasn't a performance or one of her usual songs. It was more like a chant, slow and rhythmic, in a language I didn't recognize. The room went completely silent. No one moved. We were all trapped in a kind of trance, unable to break free. It was as if time itself had slowed down. In that moment, I realized the terrible truth. This wasn't just a party. It wasn't about networking or fun or celebration. This was something ancient and dark, and I was in the middle of it. I managed to slip out quietly and made my way to the exit, my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I stayed any longer, I would be pulled into something I couldn't escape. Once outside, I grabbed my phone and felt a wave of relief. But the fear didn't go away. It was as if I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to, something that could have dire consequences if I ever talked about it. I tried to forget what happened that night, but I can't. The whispers, the talk of rituals, the power plays, and the connections to Diddy's parties still haunt me. I've heard similar stories since, but they always come from people too scared to speak openly. It's like there's an unspoken rule. You don't talk about what happens at these events, or you pay the price. So if you ever find yourself invited to one of these exclusive gatherings, think twice before you go. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface than you realize. And once you're in, there's no telling what you'll be drawn into. I've watched the rise and fall of many celebrities, but Diddy has always stood out. The more I found out about him, the darker the truth became. This isn't just celebrity gossip. This is something much more sinister. Diddy has long been at the center of a web of power, manipulation, and hidden truths. His life marked by increasingly bizarre and disturbing events. What once seemed like a glamorous persona has slowly unraveled, revealing a man involved in some truly sinister situations. From court documents and witness testimony to first-hand accounts, evidence is mounting that paints a dark picture of a figure many once idolized. The disturbing revelations began with an Instagram Live in 2022, in which Diddy kissed his mother on the lips in front of his followers. While that in itself was unusual, his casual comment about taking her to strip clubs made the moment even more uncomfortable. He laughed it off, explaining that his mother was single and that she accompanied him to the clubs. This bizarre exchange raised questions about the nature of his relationship with his mother and hinted at deeper issues in his personal life. As I dug deeper, I discovered that this wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern involving his family and their troubling behavior. In 2022, a bartender named Grace, who worked at one of Diddy's infamous parties, shared a disturbing account of an encounter with his son Christian Combs. After feeling disoriented from what she suspected was a drugged drink, Grace found herself alone and cornered by Christian, who allegedly harassed her. She managed to escape, but the incident didn't end there. In 2024, Grace filed a lawsuit against Christian for assault, battery, emotional distress, and drugging. And music producer Lil Rod Jones reportedly has recordings of the entire incident. These revelations raise troubling questions about the deeper dynamics of power, control, and abuse within Diddy's family. But the disturbing nature of Diddy's world extends far beyond his family. There have long been whispers about his alleged sexual relationships with prominent male rappers. Rumors that have largely been brushed aside by the industry. Former bodyguard John Dell, who worked closely with Diddy for years, revealed that he witnessed disturbing encounters, including alleged sexual acts between Diddy and famous male artists like Ja Rule. Dell also spoke of interrupting one such encounter in a hotel suite. These claims go beyond mere speculation, with court documents and testimony alleging that Diddy hired male escorts, including one involving rapper Meek Mill, who has neither confirmed nor denied the allegations. These consistent accounts suggest that these relationships may have been more than just rumors. Diddy's reputation for exploiting and grooming young talent also extends to his professional life. In a 2016 interview, Usher talked about living with Diddy in New York City at the age of 13 as part of something called Puffy's Flavor Camp. While this seemed like an exciting opportunity for a young artist, it raised questions about the nature of their relationship, given that Diddy was in his 20s at the time. Usher's experience is just one of many, as other artists, including Lil' Kim and Cassie, have come forward with similar allegations of grooming and harassment during their teenage years. Although Diddy's legal team has worked hard to suppress these stories, the pattern of abuse is clear. Perhaps the most chilling chapter of Diddy's career involves his alleged connection to two of hip-hop's most infamous deaths, Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. The rivalry between East Coast and West Coast rap came to a head in the 90s with the tragic murders of these two legends. For years there have been rumors that Diddy played a role in Tupac's murder, and in 2023, these rumors took a darker turn when Keith D., a man arrested in connection with Tupac's murder, claimed that Diddy had paid him $1 million to kill Tupac. The confession was shocking, but it didn't stop there. After Tupac's death, Biggie, once a close friend of Diddy's, became the next alleged target. Gene Deal told a chilling story of how Diddy allegedly lured Biggie to Los Angeles despite the dangerous climate following Tupac's death. Days later, Biggie was killed in a drive-by shooting, and Deal believes Diddy set him up, fully aware of the risks. Diddy's sinister behavior didn't end in the 90s. As recently as 2012, he allegedly tried to have rapper Kid Cudi killed after discovering that his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, was flirting with him. Former bodyguard Roger Bonds confirmed that Diddy had someone throw a Molotov cocktail into Cudi's car. Luckily, Cudi was not in the car, but the incident shows just how far Diddy is willing to go when driven by jealousy and rage. As I learned more about Diddy's past, it became clear that much of his behavior stemmed from his traumatic childhood. Growing up in the Bronx, Diddy experienced great loss. His father was murdered when he was just 3 years old, and his mother worked multiple jobs to support him. These early hardships seemed to shape him into the ruthless figure he became. But it was his infamous freak-off parties that revealed the darkest aspects of his personality. Far from being typical celebrity events, these gatherings were marked by disturbing reports of drugged attendees and people being forced to stay against their will. Diddy himself made chilling comments in a 2002 interview, casually mentioning that he kept women locked up in his home, hinting at the control he exerted over others. Even more disturbing was the discovery of secret underground tunnels beneath Diddy's mansion, believed to be used to transport people to these sinister parties. In 2024, authorities raided his home and found over 1,000 bottles of baby oil, AR-15 rifles, and narcotics. While some dismissed the baby oil as an odd bulk purchase, many believed it was a cover for liquid ecstasy, suggesting that Diddy was drugging his guests at these parties. The fact that police confiscated every single bottle only added weight to this theory. As the stories surrounding Diddy continue to unfold, one thing becomes clear. Diddy's public image is a carefully crafted facade. Behind the scenes, his world is filled with dark secrets, disturbing allegations, and a long trail of ruined lives. As the truth about Diddy begins to emerge, it seems only a matter of time before the full extent of his actions are revealed.